Welcome back to the Broker Tech Ventures webinar series. Today, our topic is around the Innovation and Inclusion Initiative at BTV. With me today is Susan Hatton, Kacie Conroy, Taruja Deshmukh, and Ellen Willadsen. Ladies, thank you so much for joining us. So why don't we go around the room right away? Susan, why don't you kick us off? Your title and your relationship to Broker Tech Ventures.
Sure, Tim. Thanks for having us. I'm Susan Hatton, and I have the great opportunity of serving as Chief Operating Officer of Broker Tech Ventures and also oversee corporate and community engagement for Holmes Murphy.
Thanks, Susan. Kacie, how about you?
Hi, everyone. I'm Kacie Conroy, and I am the Director of IT at M3 Insurance. And for Broker Tech Ventures, I serve on the Advisory Committee.
Thanks, Kacie. How about you, Taruja?
Yeah, hi, I'm Taruja Deshmukh. I'm an associate account executive at Connor Strong and Bucklew. Connor Strong was one of the founding owners of BTV. So I've been pretty heavily involved in kind of all the towers that BTV has implemented so far.
Thanks, Taruja. And Ellen, last but not least.
Thanks, Tim, and fellow panelists. It's a pleasure to be here today. I'm Ellen Willadsen. I'm the CFO for Holmes Murphy. And I'm also Holmes Murphy's executive sponsor for Broker Tech Ventures. So pleasure to be here.
Thanks, Ellen. In one way, in what we've been doing to kind of kick off all of these webinar series here has been talking about the introduction into insurance, because it seems like everybody has a different path into how they got into the insurance and the insurtech world. Kacie, how did you get introduced into the insurance world?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I'll be interested to hear what everyone else on the panel has to say too. A lot of people have a story that they fell into the insurance industry. My journey was very similar. I've been a technologist my whole life, and the prospects of working in insurance, really stopped me in my tracks to think about how does technology and insurance come together. Happy to say that through my consulting background, as well as meeting a fellow member here at M3 Insurance, that I came over into the insurance world, and it's been a really great journey to bring technology into our insurance industry.
Well, it sounds like that's a perfect fit for BTV then. Technology and insurance, isn't that exactly what we're doing here?
Exactly.
Susan, I know even though you're the COO of BTV, you didn't start out in insurance right out of college.
No, that's right, Tim. I did not. I spent a little over 10 years leading business development for an advertising agency and communications firm, and had also the really good fortune of getting to know Dan Keogh, Ellen Willadsen, and others at Holmes Murphy that made it too good to be true to join Holmes Murphy a little over 6 years ago, and I couldn't have asked for a better place to be.
Mm-hmm. Ellen, how about you? What was your first entree into the insurance world?
Well, I started in insurance actually when I graduated from college. It was a tough time in the economy, so it was hard to get a job, and I answered an ad in Minneapolis. And one of the things it asked for was excellent 10 skill capabilities. So I went into the interview and had no idea what a 10 key was, but bluffed my way through that after asking how to get a total on this thing. And if you guys don't know, a 10 key is actually a calculator. So I bluffed my way through that and landed that job, and then went into public accounting after that, and then re-entered the insurance world after, again, answering a want ad, believe it or not, as Holmes Murphy offered a position as controller. So that's how it began.
So Ellen, were these want ads in the newspaper? Like you're reading the newspaper and seeing an ad?
That's how it went back then.
Man, times were simple back then, Ellen. Well, Taruja, I wanted to save you for last because it seems like you at least wanted insurance to be part of your career path a little bit earlier than most people, because I see you graduated from Temple with an expertise in insurance and risk management.
Yep, yeah, so Temple's one of the schools that has a very strong risk management and insurance program. So when I was in college, I started in 2007. So kind of in my mid-college years, the financial crisis happened, and I saw a lot of my friends that struggled to look for jobs upon graduating. So that was the one thing I did not want to happen to me. So I learned about the insurance program through the business school, and as we all know, insurance industry is pandemic proof, it's recession proof, it will always be there. So that was one of the reasons I wanted to go that track. And the more I learned about it, the more I realized this was a really interesting space to be in, that I hadn't really learned about in the past. So yeah, so I decided to major in that and just started working in insurance from the get-go.
Man, that is interesting. So as a 19 or 20-year-old, while you're midway through college, you decide, man, I think insurance is going to be where I focus.
Yep. Yeah, I know it's definitely not something that, again, even a lot of schools offer. So Temple's unique in that way, and it just made sense. There's a lot of different opportunity. As we all know, with kind of going the broker route, the carrier route. So there's a couple different paths you can take, and there's a lot of opportunity to grow. And still now, I mean, there's a need for new talent in the industry. So again, I mean, there are a lot of companies hiring, and it was it was a good long-term stable career. So me being risk averse, decided to go with risk management.
That's great. I love that story. And of course, we're here today to talk about opportunity, right? You mentioned opportunity, Taruja, and we're here today to talk about opportunity, in particular, the opportunities provided through this initiative, Susan, the initiative of inclusion and innovation at Broker Tech Ventures. Now, where did that idea originate within the BTV global, hemisphere?
Well, I think it's no shocking surprise to anyone in our ecosystem that the insurance industry in particular could lend well by leaning in, not only in terms of diversity and inclusion, but innovation. And so we felt, with Broker Tech Ventures being a young company ourselves, that who better to take this initiative and march it forward. So fortunately, we have some incredible female leaders, of which I'm surrounded on our panel today. And really, between Ellen, Kacie, Taruja, myself, and a few others are bringing this initiative to life. And I would say also, Tim, what we had seen last year when we launched our accelerator was really a hearty pool of applicants that we were so proud about, but frankly, very little in terms of representation of women, of those of diversity, and even not just diversity of geography, diversity of culture. And that's something we're very interested in, but we know we have to be intentional about it.
Right. And Kacie, I know you've had firsthand knowledge of this. You are a founder yourself. You've been in the technology industry for a while. Now you've been in insurance the last 5 or so years. So you've seen firsthand kind of the lack of diversity in that startup tech world. When you were asked to be a part of this initiative, what were your first thoughts?
Immediately was yes. That was the first answer. But yeah, I mean, I love to be out there to show people what is possible, and for other people, women in particular in my position, that they can see that there are people like me as I want to grow my career that are in positions of leadership in, typically male dominated fields. That's been my whole, life's career. As a technologist, most of my career has been the only woman in the room at the meeting running a project. And so I understand what that journey is like. Throughout my career, I started out where percentage of females in technology were very low. And then just after, Y2K, you started to see that pick up. Interestingly enough, that started to dip. And we're still kind of coming back from that. And I think it's really important to have diverse representation for any type of company, any type of organization like Broker Tech Ventures to have diversity representation, because you widen your net, you bring in different perspectives that you wouldn't normally. And that's really important to have the best innovations that are out there, is to make sure that you're bringing all the great opportunities to light.
Yeah, you had mentioned something in an email like only 2.8% of startups are founded by women. I was shocked by that number.
Yeah, there was an article and it was like breaking news that in 2019 we had the highest percentage of all female founding companies. And I immediately read the article and I thought, this is great news. I can't read the article. And when you read the article, it said 2.8% were all female founding founders. And I thought, this is the wrong headline. This is not something to brag about. What it really should say is, how do we bring more diversity into innovation, into the venture capital fund, into startups, in that new ecosystem of entrepreneurship? So to me, they were boasting about 2%, 2.8%. That was up from 2.2. The headline was wrong. The headline should really be, how do we expand, who we bring to the table?
Right. Now, Ellen, you were the first woman ever on the executive committee at Holmes Murphy. So you've had this great career in the insurance space. What did that mean to you when you became the first female ever to sit on the EC at Holmes Murphy?
I think I would say two things, Tim. First of all, a great amount of gratitude to the mentors that I have had through the years here at Holmes Murphy, including both male and female leaders that have helped me along the way. And then secondly, just an opportunity to help others progress and achieve the same or higher levels at the company. That's very important to me, that I not be the only female voice on the executive committee years from now, that definitely not only continues but propels forward, and we have a good balanced voice there.
Yeah, it seems like, Ellen, you have a real passion for mentoring now. You mentioned mentors that have helped you get to where you're at, but it seems like with Women Optimizing Women is an initiative that you're very involved in and lead. And now, of course, with the Innovation and Inclusion Initiative at BTV is another one you're obviously spearheading. What is it about these efforts that inspires you?
Well, Tim, again, I go back to just being thankful for the advocacy that I've had. And I always go back to, I think there are mentors and there are advocates. And both are important. But making sure that when you are supporting someone, when you believe in them, that every single meeting that you're in, every interaction that you have with people, you present them and help present them in a positive manner, and help promote them and help highlight really what their strong points are versus pointing out the smaller weak points that everyone has. Because as I go back in my career, I think the people that supported me the most, I always knew that if there was a dissenting voice, that they would be the ones that would stand up and speak for me if I was not in the meeting.
Wow, that's fantastic. And part of this initiative, Susan, has been around educating and exposing underrepresented groups to the insurance industry. I know that's one of the goals of this initiative. What are some of the first steps that you are going to take at BTV to accomplish that goal?
Yeah, thanks, Tim. I mentioned intentionality earlier, and I think that's absolutely what it has to be when we're talking about innovation and inclusion. It means being intentional. And what I'll use an example. Taruja and I had a really great meeting with an organization, Black Girl Ventures, which is a venture fund representing Black and Brown women, and really incredible work that they're doing. But they mentioned something that was really quite powerful, and that was, how would you know you wanted to either have a career in insurance or start a company with an insurance bend if you know nothing about insurance? If you never grew up understanding what insurance is or why you should have it, how on earth would you develop a career or a passion around that industry. So there's no question why we're seeing a lack of diversity in our industry. And so I think that just goes to show in terms of how we're going about this is very intentional. It's reaching out to those organizations that we want to open our doors and say, come into Broker Tech Ventures, we want to hear from you. And that is through efforts like this group, and then also efforts as in officially reaching out to organizations that we want to bring them into our ecosystem.
Taruja, I see. Yeah, I see you nodding along.
I would add to that too. I mean, I think, what Susan said was completely on point with what we found from that conversation. And I think in my mind, I thought, we just need to make sure we are connecting with more organizations that have, a more diverse base, more women founders, to kind of connect them to Broker Tech Ventures and our accelerator. And I didn't realize until that conversation that it's not just about kind of opening the door, so to speak, but we need to actually show that there's opportunity in that space. So it was definitely eye-opening, and I think the good thing about that is now we know, it is our responsibility to do that, and we have some ideas and some direction that we can go to try and to boost that. So hopefully we see some progress on that side.
I was going to add to what both Susan and Taruja were saying. There's a lot of synergies and a lot of similarities actually between technology and the insurance industry, both in just level of representation, but also in the how you fall into the career and how which there's different variations of insurance. Taruja spoke on that already. Same as with technology. And in my background, I have my own group where I educate middle school age girls about the different career paths with technology. Similar to what Susan was saying, they don't know they don't even know if they want to go into technology until they learn about the different variations and skill sets. And once they know, they're like, oh my gosh, this is great. I'd love to be in a tech career. But it's not until you have even just a short conversation to educate on the opportunities. And it wasn't until my tech background collided with the insurance background that I thought, oh, these aren't as different as I initially thought. And what Taruja was saying, it's all about educating about the opportunities, but that's work that all of us on this panel are really excited to do, is to help paint the picture of here are opportunities, and by doing that work naturally, we'll continue to bring in further representation.
Kacie, you're talking about mentorship right now and mentoring young girls. Were there mentors along your path that kind of showed you the way, or did you realize that there weren't many mentors for you, and so you want to be that for the next generation?
Yeah, I mean, I would say a little bit of both. I feel very lucky that I have had great mentors throughout my career, both women and men, to help me to get to where I need to go. That said, I think from a technology perspective, there are not a lot of female mentors that are out there. So naturally, majority of my mentors were men, which was great. They had the seats, on the executive committees and the senior leadership teams, to what Ellen was saying, to, be your champion when you're not in the room. But it was really important to me to carve out a place where I could potentially be a mentor to somebody else. So they could see that, yes, there are females in leadership positions in tech, and I can, get to these different growth opportunities that different people want to get to. And so I think it's important to have different representation at different levels so that you can have whatever mentor it is that you want, but representation is important. And I was really lucky to have good mentors along the way. I want to do the same and kind of pay it forward from my past experiences. That's really important.
Absolutely. And Taruja, I'm curious as to you've been in insurance essentially since you were in college, insurance and risk management. Has your inclusion in this BTV initiative kind of shifted your perspective on your career and your career focus and your purpose?
Yeah, definitely. I didn't really know much about InsurTech, let's say 2 years ago. But I found out a little bit more about InsurTech, and I knew that, Connor Strong needed to be doing more in that space, as did, basically everyone in the industry. And I was lucky enough to be able to get involved with something like BTV, which has really opened my eyes. It's been a tremendous learning opportunity for me, and not just with the subject matter, but also, I've made so many great connections. So all the women here are, super smart and amazing, and it's been a real pleasure to get to know everyone involved, especially, not just within my firm, but our partners.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Susan, how about you? You are now the COO of BTV, and you're leading this initiative. How has this initiative and BTV as a whole kind of shifted your career perspective?
Oh goodness. Well, it obviously it's been such a fast-moving year that it's hard to believe that it's next week is our 1-year anniversary, 1-year birthday for BrokerTech Ventures, and I've been very fortunate that 2 of my greatest mentors and champions have been hand in hand in the process, and that's been with Ellen and Dan Keogh, and so that has been just an absolute joy and certainly a lot of work. But I will say, I even as a little girl, always thought one day I wanted to either own my own company or start my own company. And I had a stint where I was trying to sell paper shoes around the neighborhood, and I had bejeweled paper shoes, and my mother broke it to me that these were not viable products. So it was that was not going to be a long-term career, but nonetheless, I've always had a creative and entrepreneurial side of me, and BrokerTech Ventures has been the gift that has allowed me to really channel that energy and bring it to life. So, a credit to Holmes Murphy, M3, Connor Strong, all of our partner agencies, because without their support and their energy behind us all, and especially working with Dan and Ellen, it would just be, again, it's been an incredible gift.
Yeah, Ellen, I'm curious as to how COVID this year and this unique year that 2020's been, how has that maybe interrupted or changed how you guys have rolled out this initiative here?
Well, when COVID first came to light for us, really became real, was the middle of March. And I recall right after that, we were having a broker partners and owners meeting shortly thereafter, and Dan and Susan and I had met, and I had asked, do we put a pause on the initiative, because, obviously all of our agencies were uncertain as to where this would lead from a financial perspective. And I think the next owners and partners meeting, it became very evident that not only were people interested in continuing, but that the situation was going to create an even greater desire to help propel this forward and to advance us in the industry to the greatest extent possible.
Yeah. Well, so Kacie, as we move forward to the fourth quarter of 2020 here, what are you most excited about as it pertains to BTV, in particular this initiative around inclusion and innovation?
Oh, so much. I think the initiative that we've been talking about for some time, but I think it really comes at a really important time in our nation to really have a captive audience about the conversation relating to inclusion as well as innovation. And the interesting part with that too is they are not two separate initiatives, but they're really interlinked. In order to be innovative, you need to have diverse perspectives, and you need to know how to bring diverse perspectives to the table and talk through those and understand different perspectives. So I think that's a really important skill set that lends itself to the inclusion conversation, that's also equally important. So the two go hand in hand. I'm really excited and very happy that when we talk about inclusion and innovation, we're linking the two, because there are very similar skill sets between the two. And with BrokerTech Ventures, while we're very focused on innovation, certainly, innovation can't happen without inclusion. And so I'm really excited for us to take this to the next level and to really talk about both things at the same time.
Well, what a fantastic way to wrap up our webinar today is on that last piece, Kacie. I think you hit the nail on the head. So thank you, ladies, all for joining us today on the Broker Tech Ventures webinar series on innovation and inclusion. I think you wrapped it up perfectly, Kacie. So Taruja, Ellen, Susan, and Kacie, thank you so much for your time today, and stay safe out there.